I have always grown up with a strong sense of self. So when I was growing up, my granddad was in charge of, he was like the keeper of the family tree. So he had all the information around that. And that was back in a time before we had such easy access on the internet as we do now. And then my dad took over that mantle for a while. And then when I was about 18, I took that over. And I am the one who does the research on the tree. I'm always dipping in and out of places like Ancestry and Find My Past. And I'm always planning trips to go and look for ancestors in graveyards and look at villages and towns and houses where people lived. And despite everything that's happened in my life, and I have had plenty of times when I've been able to question what I've been doing with my life, where I'm from, what I do. I've never felt particularly grounded. I've never found a sense of community anywhere I've really lived. I've never found what they call my tribe. I've never found that. And I think that's because I am just naturally a loner. But I've found that quite easy because I know who I am. I'm already grounded in my own personal history. I know huge amounts about my family history on both sides. I've learnt a lot. My mum was adopted, and I spent quite a lot of time in later years when she asked me to, because she didn't always want to know, finding out where her DNA came from, because she had a good upbringing with her adoptive family, but she didn't know where she really came from. And she said it wasn't until she got married and had her own children that she started to ask to herself where she came from, what her own background really was, why she came into being, what were the circumstances, who were her parents, who were her grandparents. And so we did a lot of research into that, and eventually I was able to solve that entire mystery. And it's been really, really interesting. And I don't think any of us ever really questioned, her parents were her adoptive parents, her family were her adoptive family. They were the people that brought her up, made her the person she was, supported her, etc., etc. So we never really considered that her birth parents really had anything to do with it. They gave up that right. But you're always curious, like, where do your looks come from? Where does your personality come from? Where do your skills come from? And we were able to look into all that, and that was really interesting. It doesn't come with an enormous happy ending. There wasn't a big family reunion or anything like that, but it has answered all the questions that my mum wanted answered. And I was curious. I'm very open-minded when I'm doing family history. I want all the stories. I want all the good guys, all the bad guys, all the weird stories, all the famous people. I want everything. I want the whole lot. I'm not judgmental. If there's one thing you discover when you are doing your family history, is that you can't judge people based on their choices. Life happens, and people get caught up in life, and depending on your background and your family is how you are able to navigate that. But I was watching a documentary last night, and it was about Pauline Black from The Selector. And she talked about her upbringing. So she was adopted. Her birth mother was white. Her father was black. And at a time when you didn't do that sort of thing, back in those bygone days. And then she was adopted, and she was adopted into a white family, even though she was a black child. And so she had this kind of strange upbringing, that she had a good upbringing, she had a good adopted family, but they weren't her birth culture. And so she went through most of her life until she was very, very recent years, being unsure who she was and where she came from and what her heritage was. And I think that's really important to know as an individual. So, and she said that when she was able to do the research and she found out more about her mother, her birth mother, and her birth mother's circumstances, and then found out who her father was, things all started to fall into place, and she found the grounding that she needed to know who she really was. And I know a lot of people, friends and family, not so much family because I do the family tree, but friends and people I know who know absolutely nothing about their family history. They know who their parents are, they might know who their grandparents are, but they know nothing else. And I think that when you don't know your background and you don't know how you got here or your family circumstances, I think there is a big part of you missing. So despite all the things that have happened in my life, things where I could have questioned myself, and even at times when I'm not sure what my purpose is anymore, or I'm a bit lost, or I'm living somewhere I don't want to live, I've always got that background of knowing where I come from and who I am and what my genetics are, which give me that grounding and remind me of all the people that I am made up from. And it's really comforting. It's nice to know why you're here, how you got here. And I'm always thinking about family history. I dip in regularly to have a look and see if there are any updates on Ancestry. We've found some really interesting information over time. You know, we've got a traveller who came from Italy, who was a very big part of my family history research for a time. We have military war heroes. We are related by marriage to Cary Grant. We are related to all the areas that I go to. So even though my family all come from the southeast in recent decades, I don't know, let's say the last 80 years or so, we weren't always from there. We have strong connections to the north of England and to Scotland and to Dublin. So I like to go to those places and see where those people were, and it's one of the reasons that I like to go and do my car camping trips in places like Scotland, because I go back to the areas where I know my ancestors lived and where they came from, and it's a really comforting thing to do. Our most recent discovery is that one of our, I say ancestors, he was actually of my parents' generation, he's passed away now, was a major illustrator, a cartoonist for Punch. That I only discovered a couple of weeks ago, which my dad was really excited about because he remembers reading Punch when he was growing up and would have seen the cartoons that this person had drawn, and we never knew that we were related to him. So it's really interesting. And being here where I am now, just down the road, there are cemeteries with loads of ancestors. And they didn't initially come from this area. They came from further west. And they've ended up down the road from where I am now. Or should I say, I've ended up down the road from them. Because we're talking 1890s, 1910s, long time ago. Everything goes round in circles, and everywhere I go, I know that somewhere along the line there's a connection. And some of the people that I've researched have had really hard stories, incredibly hard lives. Most of the people that I see in my family history were agricultural labourers, dock workers, people in regular but hard jobs, and seeing how they navigated that and brought up their families and survived or didn't survive is really very interesting. And it's a reminder how far we have come, or not come, depending on how you think about the human race. And whenever I go back home to my parents, the walls are covered in family pictures from family history, going right back to, the 1860s and the 1870s. They're everywhere. Loads of the furniture in the house comes from previous generations. So it's always there, it's always around. And I have a few things here which my parents didn't particularly choose to keep. So I have some memories of previous generations here in my home. And it builds your personality, and it enables you to know where you fit into the world. And I think, particularly for people who are lost or are struggling with identity, I think a lot of those people don't have that background. They don't know where they come from. They don't know why they are who they are. And very often, if you then research your family history, you will find out that, oh, that's where that interest in music came from, or that's where my skill at football came from, because it's in your genetics. And that again is very comforting. So if you are struggling to know your place in the world, if you're struggling to understand yourself, have you tried looking into your family history? It's very easy to do online now, even with free accounts like Ancestry. You don't necessarily have to pay for the subscriptions. And just Google. I Google the names of ancestors, the names of places where ancestors lived, and you'd be surprised what comes up that you don't have to pay for. There are so many fantastic free resources on the internet. So that's a bit of a thought for the day. If you don't know who you are, look at your genealogy. It may answer a few questions for you. Thank you for watching this, and I hope you find that interesting.